And of course, we're living in a period in our country where it seems as if our awareness of history is not that acute, and that our sense of empathy for many Americans is becoming ever more restrictive. It's not that we as a country lack empathy, it's that a substantial portion of this country feels empathy, but only for a certain group of people who look like them. And I feel that my project, and probably the project of so many people in this room, is about making sure that our concept of empathy expands ever further, so that those who are far and feared become near and dear to us. And that's particularly important for me as a refugee, because of course, in this time period, in our world's history, not just the United States, our capacity for empathy for refugees has become ever more constricted. The United Nations says that there are about 66 million displaced people in this world, and about 22 million of those people are refugees. In our country's case, the distinction between refugees and immigrants is a really crucial one. Recently, I went to a high school and was speaking to many students, and I was told in advance that many of these students are refugees. So before we started, I asked these students, how many of you are refugees? None of them raised their hands. When I said, how many of you are immigrants? Many more of them raised their hands. And it's not clear to me whether there was a misunderstanding of the distinction between these terms or whether these students had already understood, only after being here a few years or less, that there is something problematic about being a refugee that encourages them not to want to identify as being a refugee. And I can personally attest to that. There's no quicker way to kill a cocktail party conversation than to say, I'm a refugee. Right? If you say, I'm an immigrant, then that's an opening for a conversation. Because then people want to hear your heartwarming story about how you came to this country and became a new American. But to say that you're a refugee, as these young students told me, when I asked them, what do you associate with the word refugee? They said, boats, deserts, camps, death. No wonder why they don't want to associate with being a refugee. And Americans in particular are allergic to refugees. Some of those Vietnamese refugees who came with me in 1975 eventually ended up in Louisiana. And 30 years later, Hurricane Katrina happened. Tens of thousands of people were displaced. And some of the American media called these people refugees. Well, President George Bush said it's un-American to call these people refugees. And for perhaps the only time in history, Jesse Jackson agreed with him. Many of these people were African Americans, and Jesse Jackson said it's racist to call African Americans refugees. And I thought, great, we refugees have succeeded in bringing America together in hating us.